Today I want to review a product that is best enjoyed homemade. And I mean it absolutely needs to be homemade. But sometimes beggars can't be choosers. The product I'm talking about is Brunswick stew. I love Brunswick stew not only because it's delicious, but because it's so regional. I live in North Carolina, and Brunswick stew has been a part of my life forever. It's so regional that I live about 3 hours from the Piedmont of North Carolina where I grew up, and I can't even get Brunswick stew that tastes the way I like it where I live now. And for that reason, I haven't had good homemade Brunswick stew in 18 years. I'm just not back where I came from when someone happens to be making a stew. So when I want some Brunswick stew, I have to settle for store-bought. And as far as I know, or as far as what is available to me, there's only 2 to choose from, and I'm going to review them today. We have Mrs. Fearnow's, that is a weird name, delicious Brunswick stew with chicken from Hope Farm. This is, not surprisingly, a North Carolina product. There's a lot of Brunswick stew in North Carolina. You don't have to get far from this area before you run into a different type of stew called burgoo, which is very much like Brunswick stew, but it's not tomato-based and looks more brown. Brunswick stew is a tomato-based stew that started a long time ago and usually just included whatever meats and vegetables were available. Rabbit, squirrel, venison, things like that. Nowadays, it's usually made out of chicken or beef or barbecue or a combination of those, along with vegetables like tomatoes, butter beans, corn, and different ingredients. The region I'm in right now, they like to make it with green beans, and I don't like green beans in my Brunswick stew, but that's not that big of a deal. It also just tastes completely different where I am now than it did in the Piedmont where I grew up. This product is from Sanford, North Carolina, and it is the favorite store-bought Brunswick stew of a good friend of mine. The other one I'm going to review is Star's Brunswick stew. Star's is a company from the town I grew up in, Burlington, North Carolina. And they make everything from chicken salad to pimento cheese. And Star's was a lower cost option. We had 2 pimento cheese options, and I'll have to do a review of that in the future. Star's was the inexpensive choice for pimento cheese. And if you wanted the really good stuff, another company that came out of Burlington is Stan's Pimento Cheese. I remember going to Stan's when I was a little boy and seeing this giant cheese grater grating the cheese for the homemade pimento cheese, and that stuff is really good. Star's is a company that I don't usually buy a lot of products from, but they make this Brunswick stew. It's available in the stores where I live now, and sometimes I eat it when I really want some. Now, when you get the Star's, it's a little bit tricky to open. You gotta try to pull these tabs up or off. And then you open it up. It looks like that inside. The Mrs. Fearnow's is just a pop top. And it looks like that. Just gonna pour some of the Mrs. Fearnow's into this pot. I'm going to spoon some of the Star's brand into this pot. Very thick. It is a stew, and for it to be cold, there's nothing strange about that. Both products are maybe cooked down a little more than it would be in a homemade situation. I'm just going to warm these up and see what I think. We got the Mrs. Fearnow's here. It's a little more red and a little runnier than the Star's. And here's the Star's. Pride of Burlington, North Carolina. You see the Mrs. Fearnow's, like I was saying, a little more red in color, maybe a little runnier compared to the stars, a little more orange, a little thicker. Now, I'm not doing today's test blind because I'm so familiar with these products, it doesn't really matter. I eat this one a lot, and I don't eat this one because I like this one better. I'm pretty sure I don't like this one at all, but I'm gonna give it a chance anyway. In fact, I'm gonna start with it so I don't have the taste of that in my mouth. There's nothing wrong with the texture. There's nothing wrong with the flavor. There's nothing wrong with the color. And when I say flavor, I mean the overall flavor. But there is one little taste in it that makes it almost seem off to me. And maybe off isn't the right word because you could also use the word smoky. And some people would say, well, I like barbecue pork in my Brunswick stew and that tastes smoky. That's not what I'm talking about. I don't know what it is, but there's something in this that just tastes like it doesn't go for me. Like I said, I have a friend who this is his favorite between these two, and he loves to get this when he can't get the real thing. It is probably just a matter of this person's recipe. There's not a set way to make Brunswick stew. It was kind of a thing where you just put together what was available. And this person had a recipe, people liked it, it ended up being a company, and it may be your absolute favorite. But for me, there's something smoky in it that doesn't go. It's just not right to me. There's nothing wrong with it, but I would rather have something without that flavor. Go ahead and have some of the stars. Again, I've eaten plenty of this over the years. I know that one difference is the Stars has pork and chicken, but I've had Brunswick stew in the past with all chicken or all beef or all three. There's just something about this that tastes closer to the way I want it to taste. It may be because this brand is from the same place as me. But it's not because I grew up eating this brand. I don't ever remember eating this because when I lived in that area, somebody was always having a stew or a get-together or a church thing, and homemade stew was just around. So store-bought was just blasphemy. I always eat stew with saltine crackers, so I want to try both with a cracker. Now the Stars with the cracker. You'll have to excuse the noise if you can hear it in the background. Our staff is cleaning and mowing the grounds today. Whatever it is I don't like about this is accentuated when I eat it with a cracker. And I've read the label to see if there's something in it that makes sense. I don't know what it is that is off-putting for me about this. It's a shame too, because more stores carry this in my area. I see it in just about every grocery store I go to. They don't carry this in any of the grocery stores that I go to, so I have to go to a different store to get it. It's not as hard to find as sea loaf, but it's not available as widely as this. But I prefer the Stars very much. If you've never had Brunswick stew, I don't even think I would recommend this. I would say find somebody who knows where to get some good Brunswick stew and get them to invite you to a stew. But if you aren't near your friends or your family and you're very lonely and nobody likes you and you've been living in the same town for 18 years but still don't know anybody, go get you some Stars Brunswick stew and eat it up, you silly. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you'll be back next week to enjoy more videos just like other videos that I made when I made videos.